Old Hollywood stars lived a life of glitz and glamour. They were adored by millions of fans for the life they lived on the silver screen. But behind closed doors, away from the cameras, some of them were truly horrendous parents. You wouldn't believe how some of the most iconic stars treated their own children, the people they're supposed to love and protect most in the world. From horrific neglect to absolute abandonment, we're going to be counting down the top 3 worst celebrity parents. Coming in at number 3, we have to talk about Clark Gable, because everything about this story is truly heartbreaking. His relationship with Loretta Young was a horrifying mess from start to finish. Loretta claimed that Clark forced himself on her without her consent while they were on an overnight train back to Hollywood. As traumatizing as that sounds, it was only the beginning. As a result of that incident, Loretta discovered that she was pregnant with a child that neither of them wanted. She was absolutely devastated. And to add to that, she was terrified that the production company would find out and force her to terminate the pregnancy, which is something she considered to be a mortal sin. Feeling backed into the corner, she had to make a drastic decision. In an attempt to try and do what she felt was the right thing, she decided to keep the pregnancy and the baby a secret. Months later, Loretta gave birth to her daughter, and interestingly enough, she named her Judy after St. Jude, who was the patron saint of desperate cases and lost causes. If anything, that just goes to show you how she felt about her daughter from day one. But did Clark Gable know about all of this? Well, according to the rumors, someone sent him a telegram letting him know about the birth of his baby girl. But his reaction was not exactly positive. To say he was angry would be an understatement. He allegedly tore the notice up into little pieces and let it fall on the ground, making it clear that he wanted nothing to do with her. While he could easily turn his back on this whole situation and continue his movie star life, Loretta was living a different reality. She now had a living, breathing child to consider and a difficult choice to make. In order to ensure that nobody found out about Judy's true parentage, she did the unthinkable. She placed her newborn daughter into an orphanage. Then, 19 months later, she went back and adopted her own biological child. In her mind, this was the only way she could reunite with her baby without causing a public scandal. After all, no one would think twice about a famous actress adopting a toddler, though if it were a newborn, that would bring about a whole other level of suspicion. She still held on to hope that Clark would eventually step up and provide for his daughter, but that never became a reality. She invited him over to see her, and in all those years, he only ever visited Judy once. She even opened up a bank account that would allow him to discreetly send them funds, but he never deposited a single dollar. Money aside, there was another problem that Loretta struggled with: Judy's physical appearance. She was always a beautiful child, but as she got older, it became increasingly difficult to conceal the secret of her parentage. With the passing of each day, she looked more and more like her father, with his high cheekbones, large ears, and signature wide grin. Out of everything though, the feature that worried Loretta the most was Judy's ears. She would try to hide them by having her wear all kinds of frilly bonnets, but soon enough this became too obvious to conceal. So when Judy turned 7, Loretta took her to a plastic surgeon to pin back her ears, because by this time, dangerous rumors had started circulating within Hollywood circles. Over the years, the lies and deception became deeper and more elaborate. When Judy finally discovered the truth about her father as an adult, this led her to an explosive identity crisis, and her relationship with her mother was never the same again. But when it comes to celebrity parents, absent fathers are nowhere near as toxic as jealous mothers, and that's why Judy Garland gets the spot at number 2. You've probably heard all kinds of stories about her erratic behavior and addiction to pills, but the truth was so much worse than you could ever imagine. And for her daughter Liza Minnelli, it was a nightmare she woke up to every day. She claimed that one of her earliest memories was seeing her mother upset, except there was always something threatening about these episodes. Judy would constantly announce that she was going to overdose in the family bathroom, then lock herself in. One day she had been in there for so long that little Liza had to cut through the screen door with a pair of scissors to check on her. That's when she made an incredibly shocking discovery. Thankfully, her mother was still alive. She had dumped the bottle of aspirin she was planning on using down the toilet, but instead of seeing this as a cry for help, Liza only thought of it as a game and believed she was simply doing it for attention. Even as a child though, she understood that her mom was addicted to these substances, so she would often empty out pills and replace the contents with sugar just to try and curb her habit. If you're thinking, that doesn't sound like a healthy childhood, well, you'd be right. Every waking moment of Liza's childhood was filled with show business. She spent more time on the road or running around MGM studios with her mother than she did anywhere else. And throughout all that time, Judy expected her to be nothing more than an assistant, who was always at her beck and call. In fact, she probably treated her a lot worse than an actual employee. Judy would travel around with dozens of luggage bags, and she made Liza responsible for carrying around her personal ice bucket because she absolutely hated hotel amenities. So the dynamic between them was nothing short of toxic. Still, there was nothing that she could really do about it as a little girl. It was the only life she knew. By the time Liza was 3 years old, she had already starred in one of her mother's films called In the Good Old Summertime. And even though she was a very young child, she fell in love with cinema and she actually wanted to do more. But when she told her mom that she wanted to follow in her footsteps, that's when the narcissism really came out. She said, "Don't get upset because of the way they may compare you to me," which is such a weird thing to say to your own daughter. This feeling of resentment only got worse when Liza was 18 and ready to take on the world. She managed to convince her mother to let her go on stage with her at the Palladium in London. It was then that she gave the performance of a lifetime with her incredible voice. She had completely won over the audience by the end of her song. Afterward, the crowd erupted in thunderous applause, and it was clear that she was destined to be a star. But instead of being happy for her daughter's success, Judy was noticeably uncomfortable. In fact, she was said to be surprised at her daughter's performance, as though she genuinely didn't know that she had any talent. She reportedly yanked Liza off stage after the curtain call and pushed her into the wings. From that point on, one thing became clear. She was now her mother's competition. No incident made this more apparent than what happened on Liza's first major opening night, when she was performing in the off-Broadway show Best Foot Forward. Shockingly, Judy didn't even show up, which is something that the newspapers caught wind of immediately. During the intermission, Liza frantically called her mother's hotel. When she finally got a hold of her, she asked her why she bailed. And get this, she claimed that she got the date mixed up and that she thought it was the next night, as though that is an excuse for missing your daughter's big day. Looking back on that moment now, Liza felt that her mother did it all on purpose. And coming in at number 1 is Bridget Bardot. Some people are just not cut out to be parents, and in those days, women really didn't have much of a choice. That was a situation that 24-year-old Bridget Bardot found herself in when she discovered that she was pregnant. At the time, she had absolutely no desire to become a mother, but it was her partner Jacques Cherrier who pressured her into keeping the baby. He likely convinced her that she would love their baby as soon as it was born and he would stay with her forever. So she kept the child and agreed to marry him. But this decision, no matter whose fault it was, would have horrific consequences. Before long, it became painfully clear to Bridget that motherhood was the beginning of the end. She was still so young and overwhelmed by fame from her modeling career that it only made her home life worse. She had no idea how to properly raise a child and no desire to learn. So when Nicholas was born, she felt completely lost at sea. It very quickly became apparent that this was not the dream life she'd signed up for. Not only was she disillusioned with motherhood, but the press started criticizing her as well. They were taking shots at her maternal deficiencies and constantly writing headlines about her lousy parenting, which only brought more shame and embarrassment to the issue at hand. And just when she thought things couldn't get any worse, everything came crashing down when her husband was shipped off to Nice for a 2-year stint in the army. Now she really was all alone, and his absence only fueled her resentment and growing unhappiness. Unsurprisingly, her marriage didn't last. Bridget and Jacques divorced in 1962, but this event came with a freedom that she had been longing for, because in the end, her ex gained custody of her son Nicholas. This poor little boy was abandoned by his mother, and he most likely couldn't make sense of it, considering that he was so young at the time. What's really tragic about this is not only did she leave him, but she also tried to hurt him years later. When Bridget Bardot decided to publish an autobiography, she really didn't give a second thought to the consequences of her actions, and the words that came out onto the page were full of spite. She called Jacques a vulgar, dictatorial, and uncontrolled macho, a gigolo, and despicable alcoholic, which of course is pretty slanderous even for someone wanting to get revenge on their ex-husband. But what was even more disturbing was her depiction of motherhood and her own son. In her writing, she made it painfully clear that she never wanted Nicholas in the first place. When describing her pregnancy, she referred to her baby as a tumor. In one passage, she wrote, "I looked at my flat, slender belly in the mirror like a dear friend upon whom I was about to close a coffin lid." Some of the things she wrote about her ex-husband and her son were so nasty that it completely destroyed her relationship with them forever. As tragic as these stories are, they're a dime a dozen when it comes to old Hollywood. So, out of all of the celebrity parents, who do you think was the worst? Please be sure to drop a comment down below and hit that like button if you love this video and want to see more like it.